All right, everybody, we're back. Happy Thanksgiving, because this is being recorded on Thanksgiving. So, yep, even on Thanksgiving, I still work a little bit. But today is a Buick day. You're looking at our 3800 in our Buick. And here's the story. Real quick, before we get started. Later today, we're going to the wife's grandparents' house. And we usually take this car because it doesn't get driven much, so we just drive it up the road and back. Well, this year I want it to be warm, and this car is cold. It won't warm up. So we're going to change thermostat. Thermostat is right down in there. It's got one bolt, so it should be pretty easy to get to. Should be pretty easy to change. Famous last words, of course. So we're going to start off, I'm going to drain the coolant, and then we're going to get the upper radiator hose off. And that part's optional, but because of not working on this before and not knowing what I'm getting into, I want to take the upper radiator hose off in case this thing gets stuck. We can get in there and pop that seal loose. So I'm going to get some tools together. I'm going to get this thing started draining. Then I'll be right back and we'll start getting this thing tore apart. Alright, we got our radiator drained. We're going to put new coolant in it, so it's not a big deal. So we got our 8mm right here. Let's get this clamp loose here. And we'll get this one loose over here. This one comes loose too. Alright, we'll go ahead and we'll get this radiator hose off here. And we want to just kind of twist and pull. And get it off the radiator first. And then we'll rotate it. And we'll pull it off the thermostat housing. And see, it's a good thing we're doing that because there's rust in there. And I'm betting this thing's stuck open. That's why it doesn't warm up. Because when your thermostat's stuck open, it means it's not allowing the car to warm up, because every time you move, cold air gets in there and it cools the car down. If it's stuck shut, our template would be on and we'd overheat. So we know we're not overheating. Let's see, that nut right there, that bolt over there. All right, we got our 13 socket. It's our deep socket. This is one of the times you want to use a deep socket. You gotta be able to get in there and get to that thing. What's holding up the shell here? I don't think we can get to it directly. It's not a 13. And let's try taking the extension off and running it straight down and see what we get. You can almost go straight down on top of it if it wasn't for this vacuum line right here. I think we're going to take that vacuum line off real quick so I can get straight down on it, and then we'll figure out if it's a 13 or not. Let's grab our line here. Use our trim tool, get down inside there. That's it, get down inside there with your trim tool. Pry that line off without breaking it. And see, that line is a metal line that goes down to your transmission, so you want to be careful you don't break it. That's your shift solenoid down there. And it just happens to be vacuum controlled, so you want to make sure you don't break it. Let's see, we need to loosen up that bolt right there on the side of the block. That way we can move that vacuum line out of the way, because it's attached down here on the vacuum, or down there on the engine. I've had this apart before, that's how I know. And let's go ahead and just zip it off with the gun real quick. Pull that metal line out of the way, and then we can get to that thermostat a little bit easier. So I'm gonna catch it, hold up there for a second. See, now we can get our line off. So it comes off there on top of the throttle body, and it comes off up here on top of the, what they call this a vacuum tree right here. You gotta pull these two lines off here so you can get this out of here. I like to try to use my trim tool whenever possible on stuff like this because it's a little easier for me to get it out of there. See, now we can get this line out from underneath the fuel rail, move it off to the side, and then we can probably straight shot that all the way out of there. So let's see if we can get it out now. Almost. Let's see if we can get a... let's see if we can get it in there with the swivel now. Might have to go shallow on it. See if we can get this out of the way here. We are not a 13. What are we, an 11? Let me see if we got an 11. Let's see if we're an 11. Move this electrical out of the way. Gotta move this electrical here. Alright, we still gotta move this vacuum line right quick. Let's pull that vacuum line off. Alright, pull that back enough with our screwdriver so we can get our trim tool in there and can that's it. We'll pull that line back. Oh, that opens up a lot of room right there. That opens up a lot of room. Okay, so let's get down in there now with our socket and see if we're an 11. We are an 11. I never would have thought that. Alright, so I got a smaller universal we can throw in there and make this a little easier. This one should be a lot easier to get in there. Oh, look at that. That's much better. Yep, it's an 11 millimeter. Never would have thought that, but let's see if we can get that bolt broke loose, and then we'll get our thermostat changed. Get that. Alright, we might be able to get it out now with just the socket. They put things in weird places on this car. There we go. I don't know how we're going to torque this back because there's a torque spec. I think it's 22 foot-pounds. I don't know how we're going to torque it back, but we'll figure it out. I'll go check my service manual just to make sure that's the correct spec. We'll do our best to torque it back down, but I don't know if we're going to be able to or not. Alright, so the bolt's loose. I'm going to go get my magnet and we're going to pull that bolt out, and then we're going to get that thermostat housing on. This is another time where magnet comes in clutch. There's our bolt. Let's take a look at it real quick. Looks like it's got some sealant on it. So I guess we'll have to put some sealant back on it when we get ready to put it back in. Alright, now we got to grab this piece here, lift up on it, and it don't want to come up, so I'm going to show you how we fix that. Grab a screwdriver, stick it inside here, and just kind of lift up, and it don't want to come up, so we're going to have to tap it loose. Make sure we don't have any other bolts in it, and we don't. Doesn't feel like there's a thermostat in there either, so let me go get a small crowbar that we can use to pry that housing up off of there. I'll be right back. Alright, so we're going to try tapping on this thing before we pry it up. Sometimes you can knock it loose this way. And grab this right here. We're going to use the blunt end. And we're going to stick it right in here somewhere, like right there. Let's see if that didn't work. So this is how I usually do. I'll get in here like this and I'll just kind of pop up. Come on. Make sure that we're not attached to anything else. Looks like that's all there is to it. It's turning, but it's turning very slowly. There we go. It's loosening up now. Okay. This thing's a stubborn old mule. I don't want to break it. So, let's see. Let's take our extension here. Let's see if we can get it to come loose and then we can lift up on it. Let's see if we can lift up and down on it till you break the seal. When you get underneath it, you can usually lift up on it from underneath if you can get a good slot in here. There should be. Okay, let's continue rocking it back and forth. And move it side to side, up and down. This is how you loosen it up, especially if it's been sitting a while. Alright, and then you can get underneath it, and you can usually get it up out of there. Get under here like this, and you can just get it up out of there like this. Don't pry up on this ear too much, because if it's stuck in there for a long time, you'll break the ear off and then you need a new housing. And we'll grab our housing and pull it out. See, that's what we got here. We got garbage right there. And we got a rubber seal here. We're going to check it and make sure we can reuse it. I don't know. I'm going to have to check service information. It is corroded though, so that's not to be, that's to be expected. We do have a thermostat in there. I can show it to you here real quick. We do have a thermostat in there. See how it's clocked? You gotta clock it back that way when you go put it back in. So let's see what we got to do to get that out. Should be able just to grab it with our screwdriver underneath the top there and pick up on it. Just like that. I heard it break free. And thus, my friend, is our busted up thermostat. And it looks like it's clogged. Let's see if it says Moto Rad on it. That'll tell me if it's been changed. It says STC. Doesn't appear to be changed. We'll compare that to the new one before we put it in. Looks like. So I'm going to grab our thermostat and we're going to take a look at it real quick. Actually, I think I do have another seal for it. Here's our new thermostat. And it says 195, says Moto Rad on it. I'm going to see if I can get that rubber to come out. Oh, there's no rubber in it. Okay, so the rubber seal is actually on the housing. See, there's our seal right there. It's on our housing. So let's pick our seal out and check it and make sure that we can still use it. We scratched up our inside of our housing here when we were rocking it back and forth, but we're good. It's pretty thick metal, so we'll be okay. Alright, so this seal looks like we can reuse it. Doesn't look like it's been damaged. If it ever leaks, we'll have to get another one. It's called a thermostat housing seal. Let's see if we can clean up some of this garbage off the bottom of our thermostat housing. And see all this corrosion here, all this rust. That's from old dead Dexcool that this car should not have had in it. This car is supposed to have regular green antifreeze. This car is pre-Dexcool, so you want to keep that in mind if you're doing a coolant change. Alright, we got a rubber seal right there, not damaged. I'm going to run it until one day where it starts leaking and I got to do this again. This is our inner seal right here. So that inner seal goes inside our housing. I don't have another one of these, so we're just going to run with it. If I can keep my gloves off of it. So our new thermostat, I bought a seal with it. So I kind of wonder if I really need this seal or not, because the other one didn't have a seal on it, and it was OE. I imagine we could go ahead and run it with this seal, and then that keep it from leaking, but... Alright, so now we're going to set our new thermostat down in the hole here. It don't like that seal, so we're going to go ahead and pop it back out, take the seal off. I wonder if the seal is supposed to go on the filler neck, not the thermostat, because this didn't have a gasket on it when I put when I pulled it out. So clock it like this. We're going to go ahead and set it down with our screwdriver. I'm going to take our screwdriver and we're going to lock it in like that. Then we can clock it where the old one was and just set it down in there. There's that. So let's see. Let's put our filler or our thermostat neck back together. We got to clean out some garbage out of here. Alright, so we're ready to put this back together. So we're going to take this, make sure this is seated properly. And we're going to turn it over and we're going to fit it back down in my hole here. Line it up, and then I guess we'll take a screwdriver, we'll take our socket and press it down in there. So we'll take our socket here and put it right here on this ear right here, and we'll tap it back down. And we'll put it on the top here and we'll tap it back down. Holes lined up, everything looks good. Now, the proper way to do this would be to change all the seals on the housing. However, I didn't know about the other seals in the housing. So that's a fault on me. But now that you've seen it and you know what they look like, you're fully aware of it now. So we're going to grab our magnet real quick. And then we're going to tighten this down, but then I'm going to go and check my service manual and make sure the torque spec. So put your socket or your bolt like this, feed it back down into the hole, and if you can get some thread started on it, great, but if you can't, that's fine too. We're going to take our socket on the end of our swivel because we don't need to cross thread this. I'm going to send this down, move this hose out, move that vacuum line out of the way real quick. And we're just going to turn this down in there. We could probably try to do it with the electric ratchet. We're going to try that, see what we get with it. Go slow. Go check my torque spec. We'll torque it up and we'll put it all back together. I'll be right back. Alright, so our torque spec's 20 foot-pounds. So I'm going to use our quarter drive set because that probably fits better. Yep, it fits a lot better. The only thing really in the way here, let me see if I can get to the other side of this fuel rail line here. Oh, that's much better. Okay. Take note of that alignment. I'll show it to you here. Here's your fuel rail right here. That's your fuel pressure regulator. Here's your fuel line. This is your pressure line. I stuck the socket down that side there. So if you don't feel like taking all your lines off like I did, you can do it that way. I've never done this job on this car, so that's why I took it apart, because that made sense to me. So let's go ahead and get our bolt down. That's it. She's torqued to spec. Now we'll find out if it leaks. Praying for no leaks here, folks. Alright, so we need to hook our transmission lines back up. So those hook up over here. We gotta get this little bugger here hooked up. He goes on this first pin right here. He just goes back on like that. And then this guy goes over here. We gotta get him underneath the fuel rail. That's how he lives. And we gotta pull this back so we can get him back under here. This one's a pain in the butt. I remember changing this rubber line out. This was a huge pain in the butt. Especially because you want to stick it up above the fuel rail and you can't. So this is how you fix that. You got to take your trim tool. And you just kind of use it to guide it over. And then you got to push down. Sometimes, if you did like I did and put just a piece of rubber hose on here, you can get the rubber hose to slide back. And then this thing goes right back together again. This hose here goes right there on the throttle body. This one's got to shove over just a little bit more to get back on that pin. Oh, I see what happened. Alright, that's what happened. Our rubber did slide back. I was fighting the end of the hose. Alright, so there's that. We got to get our 13 millimeter back on that bolt down there and get that transmission hold down bolt back in the block down here, or the cylinder head. This bolt's got to go back in down here. is not too bad to get in, depending on what day of the week it is. Let me get my socket on it, and we'll get that back down in there. We'll take our attachments off here. You want to start this by hand, just like you do every other bolt. Once you get a few threads in, and if you have an electric tool like I do, you can go ahead and zip it down in there. You gotta move this line around, get that bolt started. It goes into the side of the block. Sometimes it wants to fight you. Sometimes it will go right in like it just did. Now we can go ahead and zip that bolt down. Just give a little bit of a tweak like that and you're good to go. Let's see, we got to put our hose back on. So this hose is pretty much formed the way it's supposed to go. So we'll put this end on first. This end goes on our thermostat housing. This end goes back on our radiator, like that. Then we'll get our radiator clamp tool back on our gun here as soon as I can locate it. You can put an extension on this if you feel like it. Tighten these clamps back down. There's that one. And we'll get this one down here done. And then we got to put an extension on it. Can't quite reach it for some reason. Now, because this car doesn't have a gauge in it, we're going to have to use our infrared gun to make sure that we're getting heat everywhere. There we go. Got to put our drain plug back in, down on our radiator. So I got to locate our drain plug, which was right up here. I wonder if it fell on the ground just like everything else does on this car. Yep, there it is right there. In case you haven't seen a drain plug on a Buick radiator, this is what it looks like. Yep, this little doodad right here goes right in this hole down here. You probably can't see it because of your angle, but trust me, it goes down here. And it goes in here. You push it down until the thread's engaged, and then you twist it till it stops turning. And that usually is all there is to it for this radiator. And of course, you want to keep an eye on it as you put coolant in it. Make sure that it's sealed up, because I've never had an issue with this thing, because I've changed the coolant on it before. It used to have really ugly coolant at one point. I'm gonna have to, feels like I'm gonna have to pick that seal out because it's not twisting in like it's supposed to. I'm gonna have to see if I can get that. There's a seal in here, and there it is right there. This rubber seal has to be all the way up in this little recess right there. Sometimes if it's been a while since you've serviced your radiator, you'll find this piece stuck inside the opening. You gotta have it look like that. Otherwise, the threads won't engage inside the radiator, and you'll be fighting this thing, trying to figure out why it's not closing up. See, now it's closing up. Yep. Make sure you get all your pieces off your thermostat, or I mean your radiator. nice and tight, should face up and down, or however your threads are pitched. I'm sure it doesn't matter. So now we're ready for the fun stuff. I'm gonna go grab my thermometer to put in the heater control. I'm gonna stick it in one of the heater vents. Then we're gonna come back and I'm gonna put some coolant in the radiator and make sure that we don't have any leaks. Then we're gonna start it up and let it run a minute and see if we can get heat to our car. So I'll be right back. I got our thermometer sitting in our dashboard. We're gonna get our funnel hooked up to the radiator and get some coolant in here. It rained, so all my stuff's wet. You also want to open up your coolant reservoir here. I need to get another one of these because this one's just a filthy, disgusting mess. So I'm looking for one if anybody's got one. Alright, so let's get in our bag of goodies here. We also need to clean out our radiator cap because it is dirty. Alright, now I've never used this before on this car, so I don't know if any of these pieces fit. May just have to do it old school. Well, there's that part. Let's see, this takes a big cap like this. I know this doesn't work on Dodge trucks. This kit will not work on a Dodge truck. Alright, and that's not the right lid then. You gotta go with the round lid. I should have a big round lid in here. No, I don't. Yes, I do, right here. No, that's not the round lid that I was looking for. Yeah, looks like we're doing this old school, folks. I don't think this cap is supposed to... You're supposed to be able to push this down on here and twist it. Unless this is not the right height. If that's too tall, that one. Let's see if this fits it. That looks better. You gotta mess with your fittings, see if I know that works. That's not working. Let me make sure this cap even fits this car. Nope. Alright, so we're gonna forego the funnel stuff. We are gonna use the funnel, but we're gonna use it in a way that it's not supposed to be used, which means we're gonna just stick it in like that, and then we'll hold it with one hand and fill it with coolant with the other. Now this is one of those cars where you're gonna have to pay attention to the coolant level in the radiator and have your other can of coolant ready. Make sure you got the area clear. When you're done, make sure you refill your coolant reservoir here because it will be empty. Alright, we're going to go ahead and pull our stopper. Just kind of hold this while we fill it full of coolant. And just let her drip. Let's put a little bit more in there. Alright, pull it back. Alright. Here comes the fun part. Say that sarcastically, of course. Now we got to start the car up and let it warm up with the heater on. Make sure all your tools are cleared from the area before you do this. And we're just going to have to keep an eye on that coolant level, make sure that as it goes down, it adds to it. I'm not sure how hot it has to be for the temp light to come on. I've never had it on. Of course, I've never changed the thermostat, so we'll see in a minute, won't we? Hopefully it doesn't come on at all. There's two things we need to happen here. We need to make sure we have no leaks, and then we need to make sure our cooling fan comes on at the prescribed temperature. If we have no leaks and all of our hoses have got equal distribution of heat and we're getting heat out of our vents and our cooling fan works and we have no leaks, we're golden. So let's get the car started and start getting this thing going. All right, so we had some camera issues a minute ago. Our phone ran out of memory. So I'll go over the process briefly because we got to check our coolant level in here. Our coolant level, let's see, our hot cold line's right here. So it dropped a lot, so that's a good sign. Okay, so what this process is basically burping. Warm it up, and then when you get it warmed up, you shut it off and you open your cap and let it burp. The more air you get out, the better it is. This car actually got up to almost 90 degrees. So I'm gonna call that a win. Let's see where our thermostat's sitting in here now. The temperature gauge is at about 58. So 58, the outside temperature is 41, so the car holds heat pretty good. I'm gonna call that a win in my book. So we gotta put our beauty cover back on, which goes this way here. Engine's still quite warm. Cooling fan's kicked on, so our cooling fan's working. Our levels up there. Let's check our our radiator. I don't know why I keep doing this. Radiator is good, so we're ready to drive this thing. So now I'm going to take it over and put some gas in it. And we're going to take this to Thanksgiving. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Any questions or comments, let me invite you to leave them down below. Let's do one more check real quick on our thermostat. Looks like it's dry. Yep, it is dry. We are dry. We are good to go. So with that, I will see you on the next one.